the Rebellious Outlaw. Picture this: you're dutifully minding your business, maybe getting your taxes done, when suddenly, a wild urge to break the rules whispers in your ear. Meet the Rebellious Outlaw, a shadow archetype Carl Jung believed lurked somewhere in all our psychic basements. Historically, societies both fear and secretly admire rule breakers, from Robin Hood to modern whistleblowers. But don't be fooled. This archetype isn't always donning a mask and plotting a heist. Sometimes it's that inner voice that says, "Take the last slice of pizza. Who cares about social contracts?" The outlaw emerges when our authentic desires are suppressed by authority, norms, or even our own hang-ups. Greek myth had Prometheus, who stole fire from the gods, for humanity, sure, but also out of cosmic defiance. Jung thought the outlaw represents repressed parts of ourselves, the wild, the angry, the untamed, manifesting as stubborn refusal or rule-breaking glee. Ever wonder why some of history's most admired figures were also called troublemakers in their day? The outlaw gives us the boldness to challenge the status quo, but, cue dramatic music, left unchecked, it turns us into walking lawsuits. As Jung quipped, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So, the next time you're tempted to jaywalk, remember, you're in ancient company. The Saboteur Within. Here's a fun brain teaser. What do Shakespeare's Hamlet and your unfinished gym membership have in common? Both are victims of the Saboteur Within. Jung warned that deep in our minds, there's a shadowy figure constantly tripping up our best-laid plans. Historically, self-sabotage has been a curious human pastime. Why else do we keep snoozing those alarms? This archetype was highlighted by Jung and touched upon by Freud, who called it the death drive. A charming Greek party guest, surely. The saboteur whispers, "Why bother?" right when we need to push forward. Remember the myth of Sisyphus, forever pushing that boulder uphill, only to slip. That's the saboteur in action. He's the frenemy who hides your keys when you're already late, or erases your confidence before you hit send on that email. But hold up, is the saboteur all bad? Not really. Sometimes it's protecting us from what feels like danger, even if it's just mild embarrassment. Jung suggested making this archetype conscious so we can stop tripping over our own shadows. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate, he said. So, next time you catch yourself binge-watching cat videos instead of working, thank your inner saboteur for the existential lesson. The Anxious Perfectionist. Ever spent an hour choosing a font only to delete the essay altogether? Say hello to the Anxious Perfectionist, the archetype with a color-coded ruler and a mild panic attack at every typo. Jung would gently pat you on the shoulder, or possibly analyze your dream about failing a test, and explain, perfectionism is a shadow trait, rooted in fear of inadequacy and, ironically, guaranteed disappointment. Perfectionism's history is as polished as its spreadsheets. The Victorians, for example, practically invented the stiff upper lip, while ancient Stoics tortured themselves chasing the unattainable sage. Even Leonardo da Vinci, Renaissance MVP, struggled to finish projects, as did Kafka, who demanded his drafts be burned unread. The anxious perfectionist, Jung said, is often the flip side of a creative impulse, an unconscious belief that if things aren't flawless, we're not worthy. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely, Jung observed. And who wants to accept that time you wore mismatched socks to a job interview? Here's the wit. Chasing perfection can stall us into obscurity. But when we chuckle at our quirks and embrace good enough, we outsmart the shadow, one sloppy doodle at a time. The Manipulative Trickster. Ever met a charming friend whose advice involves suspicious quantities of misdirection? That's our old pal, the Manipulative Trickster, a favorite of Jung, and honestly of mythology as a whole. The trickster is everywhere. Loki sets Norse myths on fire. Anansi weaves mischievous webs in West Africa. Bugs Bunny outsmarts everyone with a carrot and a wink. Context: in the psyche, this archetype is both the prankster and the sly dealmaker, turning rules upside down not for justice, like the outlaw, but simply because it can. Jung saw the trickster as necessary chaos, a mirror showing how cleverness and deception are flip sides of human ingenuity. The trickster is a collective shadow figure, a summation of all the inferior traits of character in individuals, he wrote. But wait, isn't it fun to bend reality a little? Sure, if you enjoy playing chess with existential dread. Tricksters keep life interesting but can leave you tangled in your own convoluted stories. Or worse, unable to trust yourself. The antidote? Notice when your clever plan is just dodging emotional honesty. As the old proverb almost says, if you're the only one laughing at your pranks, check if the joke's on you. The Envious Rival. Can't stop side-eyeing your colleague's Employee of the Month mug. Meet the Envious Rival, a shadow dweller that Jung linked to humanity's most dramatic feuds and awkward family dinners. Envy is ancient. Cain and Abel, Romulus and Remus, sibling rivalry. History is basically a never-ending who wore it better contest. Jung believed that envy emerges when we project disowned desires onto others, resenting what we secretly wish we had. Ever notice how the person who annoys you most often has something you lack, like confidence or better Wi-Fi? Philosopher Søren Kierkegaard called envy the most miserable form of self-torment, and medieval monks once listed it as a deadly sin right after overeating at brunch. The twist: rivalry can motivate or destroy. When repressed, the envious rival sabotages relationships and self-esteem, turning success into a zero-sum game. But made conscious, as Jung argued, envy becomes a map to our own unrealized potentials, an accidental compliment, if you will. So, next time envy strikes, why not treat it as cosmic feedback? Maybe you don't need that mug, but a dash of self-compassion goes with everything. The overly idealistic dreamer. Do unicorns seem plausible before breakfast? Then you've met the overly idealistic dreamer. A shadow archetype Jung would say floats above reality, chasing visions too brilliant for mere mortals. Throughout history, dreamers have both invented the future and missed their bus stop doing it. Romantic poets like Shelley and Rimbaud lived more in their imaginations than the mundane world, and sometimes forgot their rent. Jung suggested that unchecked idealism permits us to ignore practical limitations, transforming good intentions into perfect daydreams that never quite land. Think of Don Quixote tilting at windmills, convinced they were dragons. The dreamer archetype provides inspiration, but can also morph into delusion, escaping uncomfortable truths by clinging to lofty visions. Philosopher Nietzsche warned, "He who fights with monsters should look to it that he himself does not become a monster." The dreamer's monsters? Disappointment, cynicism, and dust-gathering journals full of ambitious plans. The solution isn't to stop dreaming, just to pack a map, a snack, and maybe check Google Calendar before launching your next utopian crusade. Sometimes the only thing standing between magic and madness is a well-timed reality check, and perhaps a good pillow. The Narcissistic Hero. The Narcissistic Hero, the one who goes on a quest. For more compliments, in Jung's archetypal pantheon, every hero has a shadow, sometimes a secret hunger for admiration. History is littered with golden statues and self-portraits that look suspiciously like propaganda. Remember Narcissus, who fell in love with his reflection? Or Jean-Jacques Rousseau, who wrote memoirs so self-flattering he could have founded Instagram? The narcissistic hero isn't just arrogant, it's driven by deep insecurity, masked by grand gestures and heroic selfies. If you've ever given an Oscar speech in the shower, you know the feeling. Jung warned that when the ego inflates, the true self deflates. The larger the island of knowledge, the longer the shoreline of wonder. In other words, puffing ourselves up blinds us to our darker, neglected traits. Yet, isn't confidence important? Sure, but when your quest for significance blots out everything else, well, you get Greek tragedies, reality TV, and that coworker who CCs their own praises. The antidote? Humility, curiosity, and maybe keeping a metaphorical mirror handy to check for spinach, not self-obsession. The fearful victim. Picture this. You're about to try something new, dancing, public speaking, ordering sushi in public, when suddenly, anxiety narrates your doom like a Shakespearean tragedy. This is the fearful victim archetype, a role Jung cautioned against adopting for life. Victimhood has ancient roots. Think of Cassandra, cursed with truths no one believed, or Job, who could have invented existential memes. Jung recognized that feeling powerless can sometimes feel oddly comforting. It relieves responsibility, but at the cost of agency. We cannot change anything until we accept it, he noted. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. Over time, the victim archetype morphs into a self-fulfilling prophecy, trapping us in cycles of withdrawal and resentment. Cultures through the ages both sympathized with and warned against over-identification with suffering. Buddhism, for instance, teaches non-attachment to pain, while Viktor Frankl, survivor of unimaginable suffering, wrote, "When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. So why not stage a tiny rebellion against fate? Next time your inner victim starts monologuing, maybe try out for the role of hero, or at least the plucky comic relief. The standing ovation might surprise you. Found this video interesting? Leave us a like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Let us know what we should cover next in the comments below.